Hey everyone, welcome back to the Crafty Couple. It's Friday and finally the weekend. Let us know in the comments, guys, if you have any fun plans, going to Dollar Tree, decorating for Christmas, going out shopping, getting stuff done, whatever it might be. We'd love to know if you have any fun activities going on this weekend. Anyway, today's video is going to be some awesome Dollar Tree Christmas DIYs. We hope you guys are still enjoying all of these. We have a lot more planned for the season, but if you do like this video, please give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comments which project's your favorite. For this project, we're going to be using this wood star from Dollar Tree to create this sign. So go ahead and remove the tag. And the first thing that I'm going to do here is apply a couple coats of white Waverly chalk paint. Now, another thing that you could do if you would like, depending on what kind of style you're going for, I think it would look really pretty also, is go ahead and apply some stain to this. So a couple options that you can go with, but I'm going to go ahead and paint it white. To create the little wood tiles for our letters to go on, I'm going to go ahead and use these little craft sticks from Dollar Tree. And all I did was draw a straight line through it, and then from that line, I'm going to measure 1 inch. And then after I cut this piece out, I'm just going to use this as a template to go ahead and then make the rest of these tiles. So you want 1 inch tiles, and then I would just recommend cutting this first piece out and then using that as a template to get the rest of your pieces versus trying to measure all of those out. And as long as you have a decent pair of scissors, I found that they work just fine for cutting these. So all you should need is a pair of scissors to go ahead and cut this wood. Now, one thing that you want to be careful with is if you notice that these start splitting a little bit, because when you cut them, the wood could split a little bit. If you notice that, you want to try and cut that off, because right there you could see that was split, so I can't use that piece. So just cut off where the split stops on the remaining part of the wood, and then you should be good. Just kind of keep an eye out for that though. For the letters, I'm using these ribbon transfer letters from Dollar Tree, and we're going to spell out Merry Xmas. So I'm going to start, of course, with the M here, and you just want to try and center it as good as you can on these wood tiles. And then for me, what I used was another craft stick and then my finger to go ahead and then rub on here and get those to transfer. Now, what I would recommend doing is slowly peeling it up just to make sure that that did transfer onto your wood, because there may be some spots that didn't quite transfer all the way, and then you can just lay it back down and rub it a little bit more and it should be just fine. One thing to keep in mind is I don't believe these transfers will work if it's a stained piece of wood. Now, maybe if you let the stain dry for a few days fully, it would work. I stained these originally, and then I was going to use the letter transfers. However, it just wasn't taking, and it may have been just because the stain was too fresh. So if you want to try that, maybe give it enough time to fully dry, but that was just my experience, so that's why I did just the raw wood on these. And then once we have all of our letters done, we can move on to creating the shelf that these are going to sit on. I'm just using 3 of these Dollar Tree tumbling tower blocks to create this ledge that these are going to sit on. So with these, you're going to need 6 total. Then we're going to create 2 of those shelves for our letters to go on. Another thing that you could do, depending on the style, is maybe paint this black, red, or even like a stained look, whatever you're going for. I was originally thinking black, but then I looked at it and I didn't think that it fit well. I was really liking kind of the natural look of this wood, so that's why I went with these. And then the next part, I'm just kind of eyeballing to get this centered up as closely as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then when you do your second part or your second shelf, just make sure you do leave enough room for those tiles to sit in there. And then you could glue these tiles down if you wanted to, if you're just planning on using this for a Christmas sign and you weren't changing it. However, they should just kind of line up and sit on there nicely. So if you ever did want to change them out for something else, you could do that. So on mine, I decided to just leave it as is and not do any gluing. But I think it's really simple, gives a kind of a modern, clean look to this, and I absolutely love how it turned out.
For this next project, I started with this rectangle decor piece that I got from Dollar Tree, and it is really sturdy, which I love, and I just spray painted it with this Satin Almond spray paint from Krylon. I do love this color. It is just a beautiful neutral color. Once it was dry, we just needed to find the middle on the top. Luckily, it was exactly 1 inch, so just do ½ an inch all the way on the top. Once you have those marks, just line your ruler up and you can make a straight line down the middle. Please use a pencil for all of these marks, just since it is easy to erase at the end. Now we are going to measure every 2 inches on the whole entire plank, and it is 18 inches long. Try to make your marks right on the middle, since that's where we're going to be hot gluing the next piece. Then I grabbed these Dollar Tree thumbtacks. We will be hot gluing the flat side down, so the pointy side will be up, and you will hot glue on all of those marks that we made, so every 2 inches. If you're ever wondering what products we use for all of our projects, we have a list in the description below. Then you can go in with an eraser and get rid of all the pencil marks. You will need 9 of these white candles from Dollar Tree. This part you do need to be careful. You need to slowly put the candle on top of the push pin. Just make sure that you do it carefully and try and make it as centered as possible. Try and do it just in one try as well, because if you try and do it multiple times, it does crack at the bottom. But if you can do it correctly, it does turn out very beautiful.
For our snowflake sign, I'm going to be using this sign from Dollar Tree, and go ahead and flip it on the back side. We don't need any of that front stuff going on, just want a clean fresh slate. So what I'm going to be using is some Waverly chalk paint in the color white again, and go ahead and apply a couple coats to that. It's okay if it's not perfect. I actually wanted you to be able to see a little bit of the texture and paint strokes, so go ahead, and it doesn't have to be completely white, but get some really good coverage on there. When I was first looking at how big I wanted this snowflake to be, I kind of came to the conclusion that 7 inches was a pretty good size for how big this sign was from Dollar Tree. I felt like that was a pretty good size overall to fit on here, so that's what I went with. So if you're wanting to recreate this, you'll want to make your first cut at 7 inches, and I'm using the 12-inch dowels from Dollar Tree. So grab one of those, measure out 7 inches, and go ahead and cut there. And then grab another 12-inch dowel, and we're gonna just line the 7-inch one that we cut up with that one and make another cut. So you should have 2 7-inch dowels now. And for the second set, well, it doesn't really matter which one, but for one of these dowels, you will want to then cut it in half. And I'm just using these wire cutters. They typically work just fine. If you do have like a little saw, you could also do that as well. So right here, I'm just marking it at 3.5 inches. And then, like I said, we're gonna cut that in half. So then you should have one at 7 inches and then two at 3.5 inches. Once we have those pieces cut, you will have a little bit left over from those 12-inch dowels. Right here, these are those leftover pieces. I'll show you right there. That was the original dowel that we cut, and then we have 2 left over. So what we want to do is take our 3.5-inch piece right here, and we want to trim these extra pieces down to that same length. So in total, we should have 4 pieces that are 3.5 inches long, and then 1 that is 7 inches long. And then after we have those pieces cut, we can start assembling our snowflake. For the design that I was going with, I'm using the 7-inch one to go through the middle there, and then the 4 3.5-inch pieces to kind of create that X right here. And then I just did a quick mark here at 3.5 inches of that 7-inch dowel, and then that's where I'm going to try and glue all of these together. The easiest way to do this is just to create that X and then make sure those are all lining up and creating a straight line. And to glue all these pieces together, I'm just using a little dab of hot glue here on each seam. And we do have a lot of people that ask about the hot glue. This is just Dollar Tree hot glue, and our gun is set at a high temperature. And we usually get a really good hold that way. So the next part here is to take a 1.5-inch long piece and then cut that in half. I did measure the 1.5 inches, but when cutting in half, I just kind of eyeballed it. These don't have to be perfect at all, but I would recommend taking 1.5-inch piece and then using that as a template to cut out the rest of them. And then right here, I'm just cutting it at a little bit of an angle so that it fits on there a little more flush. That way when we go to glue it, there isn't a huge gap. And then again, I'm just going to use a little bead of hot glue to hold that in place. You really don't need much since we will be gluing this to the sign a little bit later. This is just to hold the form, and you do want to avoid too much because then that's going to run through over to the front of the snowflake, and we want to try and keep that as clean as possible. And once you have all these little pieces cut, I just decided to glue one side of it and work all the way around. And then when I got to the end, I glued on the other side. This is a really easy part. The next step is a little bit more intricate, but this part pretty straightforward. Just make sure to cut it at a little bit of an angle and then hold it for just a few seconds so that that can dry in place. So like I said, once I went all the way around, I just went back and glued all the other pieces on with just a little bit of hot glue on there. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect, so don't beat yourself up if these parts on the end aren't looking absolutely perfect and straight or lined up with each other. That will be completely fine. This next part, you do want to make sure that it looks pretty even, because if some of these areas get off, then it just kind of throws the snowflake off a little bit. As you can see here, it would look a little weird if we left it like that. So I lined all of these pieces up, and these again I went with a 1.5-inch piece and then cut that in half and actually trimmed just a little bit off of those pieces as well. And then you're going to do the same thing, just put a little bead of hot glue on the back here. The reason why you don't want a lot is once you go all the way around, you'll want to stand back a little and look at it. If there's any little section that looks like it's just not matching up with the other parts, you can then kind of peel that glue off and make some little adjustments and then glue it back on. But this part, you do want it to look pretty symmetrical. Okay, and once the paint has dried on our sign, I decided to add a little frame or border around this just to give it a little bit more character. So again, I'm just using this 12-inch dowel, and I held it up along that side and then cut it, and then just made sure the other side was the same length. And then I'm going to use that as a template. Cut this one to the same length, that way both sides are done. And then to get the middle part here, I'm just going to hold these up on the ends and then stick a dowel in between those, mark it with my finger where I need to cut, and then go ahead and cut that part. For these angled pieces, you will want to, just like we did kind of with the snowflake, cut this at an angle so that it will fit a little nicer with this vertical piece. So cut that, and then you'll want to hold that in place, and then where that meets with the very top of the sign, we'll go ahead and trim that off right there. And then we'll do the same thing with the other side, and you can use this one as a template as well. And then you'll want to do the same thing, just make sure that you're cutting that at a little bit of an angle so that those will angle up towards that top piece and it will fit flush with those side pieces. Once we have those pieces cut out, I'm going to just go ahead and start assembling this. So I like to start and then work my way all the way around. So I'm going to glue this side piece down and then this bottom piece, and then just move all the way around this. So this sign was bowed up a little bit. I don't know if you can tell, but it ended up sticking just fine with the hot glue. So run a nice line all the way along the bottom there, and then you'll just want to press and hold that on the bottom until that dries. That way it doesn't pill up since it was kind of bowed there. And then we'll go ahead and move all the way around this. And for this top piece, I ended up waiting before I cut it to get all of these glued in place. That way I didn't have to worry about them rolling around. And then I just put it in that gap, and then right there I just cut it to length, and then we can go ahead and hot glue that in there. Once we have all of our sign complete with the frame, we can go ahead and glue our snowflake on here. So you want to make sure that you're putting the glue on the back side where we put the glue earlier. Could be a very easy mistake. Just make sure you do that. And then you can go ahead, and I'm just putting it right here in the center, just eyeballing it, and then press that down firmly and hold it in place for just a few seconds. And then this, I just wanted to add a little bit of greenery on here. So I'm using some of this eucalyptus from Walmart. You should be able to find this in the Christmas section for 98 cents. And then I just cut a few pieces off of there, and I'm going to use that for a little bit of extra character at the top.
This last project has been one of my favorites. We are going to start out with these mason jars. So the first one I showed you is from Dollar Tree, the next one is also from Dollar Tree, and the third one is from a thrift store. The first one is a little bit too small, so I'm going to be using the two larger sizes. And then these mini trees also from Dollar Tree. I spray painted this larger one, so the smaller one of this package, with this Krylon satin ivory spray paint, and I think it looked beautiful on the tree. The smaller trees do not spray paint very well at all. So I found this technique from Lemon Avenue Life on Instagram, and I'll link her below. She actually bleached these little trees, and they came out so cute. So you just put a little bleach in a little cup, and they come out so cute and white. It only took me about 20 minutes. And then after they turn white, I went in with this Dollar Tree snow spray to give it more of a white and snowy look. I am so obsessed how these little trees came out. If you're anything like me, you're obsessed with miniatures, and I would do this 100 times over. So definitely go give Lemon Avenue Life a follow below. She's amazing for coming up with this technique. So I spray painted one of the larger trees, and then I bleached 3 smaller trees and left one of the smaller trees green. So 3 of the little trees that I bleached will be white, but one of them I'm actually going to paint pink. I did end up spraying a little bit of the fake snow on the green one, and also a little bit on the cream one that I spray painted at the very beginning. Then for the last little one, I went in with this pink paint, and just with this small brush, painted all the little bristles. When that was dry, I just went in with the same snow spray. Let me know what you guys think of this technique in the comments below. Do you love the little mini trees, different colors, and also do you love them white? Just let me know what you guys think in the comments. Now we are going to grab the smaller jar that I got from Dollar Tree and this white sand that I also got from Dollar Tree. We are going to fill the smaller jar with this, and it's going to act as the snow. Then we are just going to place our little mini trees inside like they are on a cute little snowy hill. If there's an easier way to place this inside the jar, please let me know in the comments. I just struggled a little bit, but ended up making it work. Then for the larger jar, we are going to do the same thing. This one unfortunately doesn't look as good on camera or in pictures, but it looks so cute in person. For some reason, the jar just warps the look of it on camera and in pictures, but I promise it looks so adorable. I just did the same thing. I added some of the fake snow, which is the sand, and then added the cute trees.
Thanks for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to check out all of our other Christmas DIY videos. We'll leave a link right here so you can check all of those out. Have a wonderful day and make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you can be notified every time we upload a new video.